Can you tell me if I'm online? Is this working? Oh, this is an advertisement first.
Well, that's for me. I need to resubscribe.
Well, I'll go ahead and start just in case anybody's here in the chat room. Hello again, and welcome everyone to yet another edition of online live office hours here on the Plaid Avenger Twitch channel. And before I go any further, is there anybody in the chat room? Is anybody tuning in this can verify that you can both see me and hear me and that this stream is indeed working? Let's check it out. Oh, Plaid Katie just subscribed with Prime. Thanks. You know, if you have Prime, you can subscribe for free to this very Twitch channel. At least that's what I've been told by the people that know this stuff. Is Blue Subaru is back in the hizzle. Welcome back, Blue Subaru, that can see and hear me. And Psy Guy also back. Welcome back, Psy Guy. First time chatter from Aditi 342 can both hear and see me. Welcome and thank you for your first time chatter, Aditi. JK Waite says hello, and Macman back up in the hizzle with the dancing T-Rex from the Fred Flintstone era of the dinosaur age. Well, thank you all for tuning in. All 5 of you, thank you for tuning in to the online live office hour for World Regional Geography, aka World Regions, the goofiest freshman level class here at Virginia Tech that's taken by as many seniors as it is freshmen every year. We never understand why, but we enjoy it, and welcome to all academic levels. We don't discriminate against academic levels. And of course, this is being broadcast from a secret warehouse somewhere in the bowels of the campus of Virginia Tech, home of the Fighting Hokies, although they've not been fighting too hard lately. But Virginia Tech, the greatest university this side of the Mississippi, if not the world. Welcome back, everybody. Psy Guy says, you know the drill. Time to promo again. If y'all want to work together in the World Regions quizzes, email me. Okay. Thank you, Syed. Can you email me that, Psy Guy? Because I will forget it as soon as things stream for another 2 seconds and I lose sight of it.
No, he's just saying to bring the chat.
Oh, Psy Guy saying to work with. I thought, Psy Guy, I thought you were offering to help me make quiz questions and test questions for class, which you're all welcome to do too for some extra points. Mr. Eeks Taco back in the hizzle saying, hi, Professor Boyer, your stream is working. Vikram Tiwari back from a decade hiatus from the university, still tuning in. Thanks, Vikram, for coming back. Tersity is floor 2 of the library. Yes, I could be on the 2nd floor of the library. I could be in the basement of the library. I could be in the 4th floor of Whittemore. I could be at Slusher Tower. Live from atop Slusher Tower. That would be semi-illegal and fun. James back in the hizzle saying hello. And Psy Guy says, wait, we can make quiz questions for extra credit. Of course you can, Psy Guy. I would never, ever have anybody do any work for the class that did not earn you some sort of point/monetary benefit. But I'm all out of cash right now, so it'll have to be a point benefit. Yeah, just hit me up whenever I do anything like this, even if you want to write questions for more points. Then we can make it into quizzes. Because, you know, by the time I finish doing something online and then we post it up and we go home and eat dinner, then I've forgotten about it. And then it's days later, I'm like, oh, yeah, I should have made a quiz out of that. So the more people that are helping out that can make quiz questions as it is unfolding, then we can more quickly turn it into a quiz, which we've actually not done yet. Last week's lecture was pretty good, or 2 weeks ago. It was pretty good. I should have made a quiz out of that stuff. And speaking of which, I just remembered we did not have online office hours last week because I totally forgot I was conducting a sherry wine class at Blacksburg Wine Lab and totally forgot it was scheduled for Monday night. I get signed up to do these things and I forget, and all of a sudden it's like, no, you can't do online office hours. You're going to teach this class on sherry. And for those of you not in the know, I didn't teach a class on a specific woman named Sherry. Sherry is a class. I'm sure Sherry's a wonderful person, and I could talk for hours about Sherry once I knew her. But we're talking about sherry, which is a distinct style of wine from the Jerez region of southern Spain. Although the dude told me It's not pronounced Jerez. I just like saying Jerez. It's spelled J-E-R-E-Z. But if you're a Castilian Spanish speaker, it's Jerez. And I'm like, I can't do it. I know you're supposed to say things correctly, but I can't say Jerez. I'm like, no, it's Jerez. I'm sticking to my guns on pronunciations, even if they're wrong. At least the people I'm talking to will know what I'm talking about. Okay, so Tricity says, I saw you heading to the wine lab about a week ago. I often visit the wine lab, like daily. So it's not hard to spot me in and around the vicinity of Blacksburg Wine Lab. First time chatter in the Hizzle saying totally not Vivian. It's not Vivian. Vivain. Totally not Vivain. So whoever you are, you're definitely not Vivain. And totally not says, did someone say extra credit? Yes, I did. First time chatter. Oh my God, that cat's hilarious. Thank you for the cat with the sunglasses. Totally not. First time chatter from Norwishy. What's a good number of points we should be at right about now? Well, I think we're in week 6. There are roughly, no, or I shouldn't say roughly, there are exactly 13 and a half weeks of class in every semester. I usually even call it just week 14, but classes usually end on Wednesday of the fall semester. So it's about 13 and a half weeks. We are at the beginning of week 6. By the end of week 6, you can do the math. You should be about halfway to the points that you want to have. So I think to get an A in this class this semester is 1,300 points or 1,400. Let's call it 1,350. So we're about halfway through the class. Again, after you do all this week's work, you'll be almost halfway through the class. So you should have almost half as many points as you want to have to get an A. Well, we just always assume you want to get an A. Some people are fine with a C. I'm fine with it. Hey, baby, it's your class. It's your money. It's your tuition. It's your class. I just want you to get smarter. The grades are of no consequence to me personally. And quite frankly, they shouldn't be for you either. If you do the best job you can in every class you're in, you'll probably get an A, but if not, that's the grade you need. It's as good as you can get. That's the good grade you need. So if you really want an A, though, I can't do the math on 1,350. Let's call it 1,400. If you want to get an A in the class, you should be, by the end of this week, you should be around 700 points. If you're around 700 points in your pocket, then you're halfway to an A. In fact, you're a little bit over halfway to an A. Some of you may have way more than that already. Good for you. You can actually finish this class early. You should be finishing this class in mid-November. You should be done with this class by the time you're eating Thanksgiving dinner, or if not, shortly thereafter. You know, eat the pumpkin pie, let it settle, then finish the course. So by the end weeks of November, you should be wrapping things up, if not sooner. So many people already have more than 700 points. And if not, you'll be well on your way very quickly. The bigger question that's usually asked, or I should say the more important questions that's usually asked, and this is for still on Norwishy's question, the bigger question to ask is, how many points is not doing good? So if you want an A, you should be about 600 or 700 points in at this point. If you only have 300 or 400, there's still a long ways to go and a lot more point opportunities. Things are not out of the question if you only have 400 points. You start to get down to 100 or 200 points, yeah, you're not doing much and you're behind. But I don't even have to say this to the good people that tune into online office hours. You're the overachievers. So you're probably doing just fine. If you have less than 300 points, you should be worried. Red flags are going up for my side, and they should be going up for your side as well. Not because you've already failed the class. Au contraire, mon frère. You can still pass it. Even if you had only 100 or 200 points, you can still pass the class, but your work performance up to this point suggests you're not going to. Does that make sense? So there's still maybe 1,000 points of opportunity left. Actually, it's probably more like 15 or 16 or 1,700 points are still in front of you. But if you've only earned 1 or 200 so far, that means you're not really taking the class seriously. You're not really doing very few of the assignments. Your performance suggests you're going to fail, but you've not failed yet. So if you have less than 300 points, you need to seriously reevaluate your performance and start doing every single assignment you can, every single assignment that is available to you, every single quiz I post, all of them, including the movies. If you have very few points, you should start doing everything until you catch back up and you get into more of a comfort zone that you don't have to do, say, the international film this week, or you don't have to do something you don't want to do. Okay? So reevaluate or just evaluate your performance in the course. And if you're over 500 or 600 points, you're doing fine. If you're under 300, you may want to prompt yourself a little bit and get back on the ball. Hopefully that helps. And thank you, Norwishy and Totally Not, for your first time chatters. And welcome to the chat box. James says, I think I was the first to place my professor this week. Oh, snap. Did you find it, James? James, tell everybody, where was the place your professor picture taken from this week, and did you see any fish? It's a sneaky little spot, but once you find it, especially for you freshmen, you likely might have never seen this spot unless you played Where's Waldo this week. It's a beautiful little corner of campus that very few people ever get to. Let's see, J.K. Waite, or Wiat says, can we touch on Armenia? With Armenia losing Nagorno-Karabakh, who have security assurances with Russia, what message does that send to other countries with Russia's security promises? Do you think we will see further instability from these countries? I don't know. I'm sorry, JK. We should share with everybody what we're talking about. So if you don't know, let's see if we can pull it up here on the map. Let's see. Nagorno will probably get me what I want to see. Nagorno. Give me a map of Nagorno. Does this site have a map of Nagorno-Karabakh? Where's the map? Where's the map? Found it. I'm just that good. No, I don't want to create a free account. Okay, so for those of you not in the know, is it presentation or presentation keynote? Oh, it is. Right. Okay. Presentation keynote. Okay, so for those of you not in the know, and this is I won't say a story that likely has not crossed your radar. If you follow international news, you probably saw something about this in the last 5 or 6 days. So what happened is this section of Azerbaijan, and again, you'll have to go, let's go back down to the map. Where is Azerbaijan? Well, you see it outlined there, this little area up there on the top map. It's in between Turkey and Iran, south of Russia, and then it zooms in to the one little map on the right, which shows the contested area in the pink. It's actually a section of Azerbaijan, all right? Call it a state, like West Virginia or New York, but within Azerbaijan. It's a sub-state of Azerbaijan that has been mostly ethnic Armenian. The population was, with alliances to Armenia, the next door neighbor, and even a little corridor of movement through Azerbaijani territory that fueled people and an economy and black market goods and everything else between Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. However, Nagorno-Karabakh is kind of, sort of Azerbaijani territory. And the reason it's in this semi-contested state, and again, the map on the lower left has a zoom in of this little region, and you see it actually almost touches Armenia in the dark gray there on that map. And the way that this whole scenario played out to be a semi-disputed little territory is that both Armenia and Azerbaijan used to be part of Russia. I should say the USSR, the United Soviet Socialist Republic, or the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So for most of the last century, both Armenia and Azerbaijan were sub-states of Mother Russia / the Soviet Union, much the same way Ukraine was, much the same way the Baltic states were, much the same way Belarus was, much the same way all of Central Asia was. So Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, those were all sub-states of Great Soviet Union. And when Great Soviet Union collapsed in 1991 and voted itself out of existence, it let all of the, even prior to it voting itself out of existence, it allowed all of those states, which we now recognize as sovereign states on planet Earth, to go their own way if they wanted to, which all of them immediately did. Everybody's like, what, we can get out of the Soviet Union? We're the hell out of here. We vote ourselves out. So what you had in this particular area is two entities that used to be part of a greater sovereign state that had all the rules of how this state works. And within that context, there was a lot of movement between Azerbaijanis, which is kind of an ethnic group, and Armenians, which is a different ethnic group. And as you might guess, Azerbaijanis are mostly in Azerbaijan, Armenians are mostly in Armenia. But during Great Soviet era, this little pocket of Armenians was within the Azerbaijani sub-state of Soviet Union. It was the Soviet Socialist Republic of Azerbaijan. When Mother Russia was in charge, it could quell any sort of national or ethnic unrest within its own sovereign state borders. So it was no big deal for most of the 20th century. I mean, maybe it was. Maybe the Armenians and Azerbaijanis used to hate each other back then, but the Soviet Union kept a lid on it. However, when all these countries voted for their own independence and got it in 1990 and 1991, now we've got a problem, because now Armenia is over here and Azerbaijan is over here, and they're sovereign states, but they had other peoples mixed up in them. By the way, the best analogy here, or comparison, I should say, not even an analogy because it's a fact-to-fact comparison, this is exactly why Ukraine has been in a semi-state of civil war ever since it became independent in 1990. Because there was a bunch of ethnic Russians within mostly ethnic Ukrainian state of Ukraine. So that is an exact parallel here. You got a bunch of ethnic Armenians who are within a mostly ethnic Azerbaijani state of Azerbaijan. And every peacekeepers, and even the Russian state itself has had peacekeepers there and tried to keep a lid on this even after they were independent. And Azerbaijan's like, hey, we want to kick all the Armenians out. Or in the last 10 years, they've said there are Armenian terrorists living in Nagorno-Karabakh who are trying to fight for a free state of Nagorno-Karabakh, or they want the state of Nagorno-Karabakh to rejoin with Armenia because it's mostly Armenians. So that's what's been swirling around really ever since the early 90s. And they've already fought a couple different wars, one of them just a few years ago, where Azerbaijanis sent military in and there was counteroffensive, and so people were literally shooting missiles and rockets and guns at each other. That was just a few years ago. And now to summarize the rest of the story, what happened just last week, or actually in the last 5 days, is Azerbaijani is looking at the scenario and just said, enough's enough, we're taking this back. It's within our country. It is our country. We give zero shits anymore. And so they did a noontime strike, literally midday, kids going to school, people going to the grocery store, and they just did an overwhelming military intervention, bombed a bunch of the place, and then now have officially taken it over within 3 or 4 days, however long it's been, and said, okay, that's it. All the Armenians who want to get the hell out of here and go back to Armenia, you should go now. Well, we're gonna open up a corridor. Get the hell out. Now, they're saying things a lot nicer than I am, but I'm telling you the truth, not the niceties that politicians and governments come up with. So the Azerbaijanis are saying basically, all right, we finally just decided we're taking it back. It's ours. We believe there are Armenian separatists still in here. We are going to root you out. We're going to kill everybody who gets in our way. You should leave now. All our ethnic Armenians should probably get the hell out of here. Or if you want to stay, that's fine, but admit you're a part of Azerbaijan and you're Azerbaijani citizens. We don't care if you're ethnically Armenian. Was that too confusing for everybody? And that's where we're at right now. Now, what, I'm sorry, I got to look back at your screen. What JK is asking is, Armenia losing Nagorno-Karabakh, who have security assurances with Russia. Russia, all these sovereign states used to be substates of USSR, right? But they're all free now. But Russia had certain states it kept really tight relations with and had security relationships with, namely Armenia and Belarus, and for a time, Ukraine. So Russia, and in Russia, once you get to the Russian chapter of the textbook, if you're not there yet, they even invented something called the SCO, not the SCO, I'm forgetting my own word. What is the grouping that Putin created? The EU, the European Economic, the EEU. It's pretty much like the EU, but it's like a Eurasian Union. Putin created that. No, I think it's the Eurasian Union. It's in the book. He created this specifically to try to kind of start to revive Russia as a power center and to have Russia as the center of an economic bloc, so that he would promote the post-Soviet Union states to kind of not reunify, but to still look to Mother Russia for guidance and leadership and as an economic and financial and military center. It's not really done. That Eurasian Union has not really done a lot. However, security pacts were made as part of that package as well. So Russia has favored those states that join the EEU who still have good relations with Mother Russia, and Armenia is one of them. Now, obviously, Ukraine's relationship with Russia has gone right down the proverbial Eastern European shit pipes. But Armenia, because of this particular little Nagorno-Karabakh region, really was keeping tight relations with Russia. It looked to Russia to help protect Nagorno-Karabakh, to help protect ethnic Armenians. One of the reasons why, by the way, side note, maybe this will help explain it to you, JK. Armenia is mostly Christian, and they may even be Orthodox Christian as far as I know. Russia is Orthodox Christian. So there's natural religious, cultural ties to Armenia that Russia does not have as tight a relationship with Azerbaijani, which is mostly Muslim. The same could be said for Russia and most of its Central Asian states, which are former states of Asia that are mostly ethnically different and religiously Muslim, not Orthodox Christian. So that's why Russia has favored and has stronger ties and even security relationships with a lot more of those Eastern European states than it does with other sub-states of its former empire. That's why Armenia was sticking tight to Russia. There have been Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh. And now, JK, I'll finish ranting about this one topic. Why do you think this suddenly happened right now? Why did Azerbaijan suddenly decide, after 30 years of back and forth, tit for tat, debating about what to do with this little region, why did it just now decide we're just going to take it back by military force? Because Russia's distracted. Because Russia does not have the manpower to put more soldiers in Nagorno-Karabakh or Armenia to help its stronger ally of Armenia. It doesn't have time. Russia's focused on its disastrous war in Ukraine, and so rightfully assessed, the Azerbaijanis are like, well, no better time than now. Russia's not going to come to the aid of anybody else. They're lucky if they're not losing more and more soldiers every day on the Ukrainian battlefield. So whenever you see things like this happen, always ask, why is this happening now? It's geopolitical in nature. It's happening now because it can happen now, and it's going to happen easily for Azerbaijan, and it already did. It's already a done deal. So JK's real question was, is this going to affect other security arrangements that Russia has with other folks? Yes and no. For starters, I don't know how many more security arrangements they have with anybody besides Belarus. And let's be blunt, Belarus is Russia. The fact that it's a sovereign state is almost an insult to the sovereign state system. Belarus is a puppet state of Russia, much the same way it was when it was a sub-state of the Soviet Union. The leader of Belarus is a puppet. He's a dork. He can barely tie his shoes. And he is just a yes man to Putin, and he will salute Putin and march to Putin's orders for everything. He is only in power because of Vladimir Putin. So, and that's Alexander Lukashenko, the last dictator of Europe. is what he's been called for a long time. Anyway, I don't know that Russia has that many other security relationships with anybody. Because most of the other Eastern European states, which it used to have a natural affiliation with culturally and religiously, really hate Russia. So the Baltic states and Poland and Czech Republic and Austria and none of these places want to have anything to do with Russia. They are pro-West. They are in the EU. They are NATO members. They are not looking to establish anything with Russia anytime soon. In fact, they are more devoutly and pouring more resources into strengthening their positions within NATO to be a more staunch bulwark against Russia. So you look at the rest of Eastern Europe, and with the exception of Belarus, Russia doesn't have any security arrangements with them. And then I look to the south. They had something with Armenia. They didn't really have much with Azerbaijan. And Armenia just got screwed, and it just is what it is. And then I look over into Central Asia, and I don't know that Russia has a whole lot of high-level security arrangements with Central Asian states. But even if they did, nobody wants to invade Central Asia, with the exception of Russia itself. So Russia may have designs of taking back over Kazakhstan or other parts of Central Asia, but no one else is. So most Central Asian states are also part of this grouping called the SCO. Maybe you learned about it this week, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I love that name. And so they're all in the same group with Russia and China. And so most of those Central Asian states feel like that they don't need a one-on-one security relationship with Russia as Russia being some sort of protector of them. No. They all look at themselves as equal footing in that bigger international organization that they all have their own militaries, but they also do joint exercises together. So all the Central Asian states may have some sort of security arrangements with Russia, but it's much more important that they have security relations within the SCO and that they are all treated as partner states within the SCO. None of them need Russia to come save the day. They are all part of an organization with Russia and China that as a unified whole, no one's going to mess with. Again, with the possible exception of Russia invading them. But Russia's pretty tied up right now and not doing well. So the answer to your question, JK, well, half hour later is, yeah, I don't think it affects security relations with anybody because I'm not sure, with the exception of Armenia, who even cares about their security relationship with Russia. Now, you could perhaps look at the wider world, and Russia has been doing a lot of work in Sahel, Africa, trying to stir up trouble, get the locals whipped up into a frenzy to be anti-Western, to join Team Russia in the global sphere of things, to kick out the French, which actually just happened today in Niger. The French government said today, the French president said today, by the way, we're pulling out all the rest of our military and diplomats out of Niger because they had a coup there, and Russia's covert mercenary group called the Wagner Group has been rabble-rousing all around this area of Africa in an effort to prop up autocrats and dictators to have them join Team Russia. Now, those folks may have security arrangements with Russia, but again, they're not under any imminent threat that anything's going to happen to them. They have security relations with Russia, probably more for economic ties and to get good deals on weapons. And that likely won't be affected by anything that happened in Armenia or Armenia's loss of this ethnic enclave, which Armenia wanted to become part of Armenia, but it was kind of doomed for that to ever happen in any case. Long answer, short question. That's what I do here. Oh, and I got lots of comments. Oh, good. I was going to talk about the story that I teased you all with on the email was about a secret deal going on between Saudi Arabia and Israel. So I'm not even going to have time to get to that. So by golly, we're going to have to do that as a podcast, and I will make a flash quiz out of it this week because we likely won't get to it today because now I just want to answer questions from you all. I love this group of students. This is my favorite class. Seriously, this is my favorite class this semester. And if you know where I'm going with that, that's kind of just a semi-joke because you're my only class this semester. But it is actually one of my favorite classes in recent memory with all this good commentary we get here on the Twitch channel. Okay, so back to Side Guy. If we have like 475, is it still possible to get an A? Absolutely, Side Guy. You still got 1,500 points of opportunities left in front of you. So 475 plus 1,500, you do the math, that's more than an A. Ben Seidel up in the Hizzle saying, will you continue to put out the foreign films because I only see them up to week 7? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Ben, you did not read the class email I sent out with the survey. Have you all done the survey yet? For those of you that have been tuning in to the Plaid Adventure Twitch office hours since week 1, you know that I was supposed to post up a class survey like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So go check out that email I sent out yesterday. There's a survey. It literally is a survey where you just click 2 buttons, and so it's not really a survey. But it says, what 2 regions would you like Boyer to most talk about for the rest of the semester? And in that email I say, hey, if anybody's worried because you don't think there's any more lecture material coming, or you don't see any more films, or you don't see anything, calm yourselves. This is a personal. All right, hang on. I gotta make this real. Let's get this personal. All right, I'm gonna look deeply into your eyes here. Let me make sure you understand this from me to you. This is my pledge. You will have video lecture quizzes every week from now until the end of this course. You will have an international film quiz every week till the last day of this course. You will have flash quizzes every week until the last day of this course. I just don't post it all up because I'm always looking for perhaps new movies to work in. And a bunch of people out of the blue told me they wanted to use the film Parasite from South Korea, which came out several years ago, so I don't know why so many of you suddenly know about that film, but it is a good film, so I might work that one in. So I don't have the film lineup written in stone, but yes, there will be a film every week. And I don't have the video lecture quizzes up for the rest of the semester because it's up to you now. However, you all vote on that survey of what parts of the world you want to learn most about. Whatever gets number 1, I will do a lecture series on that region. And I can already tell you from past experience and already looking at the survey results, it's going to be China always leads. So China is currently in the lead, followed closely for reasons I cannot understand by the polar regions, Arctic and Antarctica. I don't know, some sort of goof. You guys are just playing a joke on me, but it's a good joke, even if you are. So you all have to go vote on that survey, and by week's end, I will know what's going to come up on deck for the rest of the semester's lectures about different regions. We don't have time to talk a whole lecture series on every region, because I could have 2 semesters of world regions, and I still wouldn't have time to do a full lecture treatment of every single region of planet Earth. Trust me, I've tried. So we just kind of pick and choose, and so with half the semester gone, we'll probably have time for 3 or 4, or maybe more regions of your selection that you'll be watching quizzes on, or watching videos on and taking quizzes on. Okay, does that answer your question, Ben? Cheesecake, a chess cake is also asking the same question. And Plaid Katie answered, I answered again, films every week. To the bitter end, my friends. To the bitter end, we shall have films.
Topic, someone asked, can they suggest films as well?
Oh, you can suggest films right this second. I love film suggestions. But I had to take a sip to wet my whistle before I welcome first-time chatter from Algie. Good screen name, Algie. Has anyone watched the Lenin film? What were your thoughts? I absolutely loved it. Thank you, Algie. I love it as well. That's my thoughts. That's why I show it to you. It's a quite good film, especially because now it would appear to be so dated, but the film wasn't put out in 1989 or 90 when it's supposed to be set. I think it was only put out 20 years ago. But it's a historical piece that demonstrates, I think, very well what was going on at the time in that part of the world, what people were thinking about, the whole dissolution of the Soviet Union. Here we are talking about, as I'm explaining the situation in Azerbaijan, that's the same time period of Goodbye Lenin. When the Iron Curtain goes away and things start to open up and all these countries suddenly declare independence. Same time period. Keep that in mind when you go watch Goodbye Lenin. But hopefully the film demonstrates or gives you some enlightenment of like, oh, that was what was going on in Germany at the time. And today's Germany is, of course, profoundly different. And it's only been 40 years, 30 years. 30 years, and I've been in Germany before and after the wall came down, and it is a profoundly different place. So it's good to have films like that so you understand how Germany got from that point to where it is now, as the richest economy, a unified state, the richest economy in Europe, and a powerhouse of planet Earth. Okay. Ben says, awesome. Thursday says, I saw Israel was a topic for the stream. Could you also touch on the India-Canada situation? Yeah, that's an odd one. Hang on. I'll come back to that Thursday. Let me find an article, but let me try to clear some of these comments since I'm so far behind. Chesapeake says, just a double, quadruple check. We must post the fine Plaid Avenger pics on social media. It cannot just be an email to you. That is correct. And by the way, Chesapeake, in times past, we have had students that say, I don't like social media and I don't want any of my crap on there. And I'm like, no, I agree. I don't like it either. You can make your account private, right, Katie? You can make any account. Just make it private, but then let us see it so you can get the points if you want to do the game. Totally not. Vivian says, what other kinds of extra credit opportunities are there? You mentioned making quizzes. Well, the Where's Waldo is another one. Totally not. And I'll try to think of some other things for you to do if you need some extra credit, but there's still lots of regular credit to go. MacMan says that film was great. Also agreed. James says, no fish today. Unfortunately, the horticulture garden is so nice. Oh, back to the picture. Yeah, maybe I waited too long. It got too cold too quick. The fish may have already went deep into the waters. Vikram says, could you please shed some light on the development of Canada versus India diplomatic spat going on? Who do you think is at fault? Totally not says, I also want to talk about this again. And James says, CSTO. What's that mean? CSTO? I'm not good on acronyms.
That was the one they were talking about, the Collective Security Treaty.
Oh, Collective Security Treaty. Okay, I'll go check that out, James. The Collective Security Treaty Organization, yes. That was a Russian-based one, but again, there's been, Russia also it tried to do another union right after the Soviet Union collapsed. It had something called the CIS. That was the Commonwealth of Independent States. Probably the Commonwealth of Independent States were all the states of the former Soviet Union that wanted to continue to kind of hang out in a union. As you might imagine, most Eastern European states were not interested at all, but the CIS counted Armenia, Azerbaijan, and the Central Asian states as members, as well as Belarus. It was a kind of a feeble attempt to kind of hold Russia as still the epicenter of, again, political and strategic power in that region with its former sub-states. It really didn't do much, but I'm almost positive that the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States, was the rubric under which that Collective Security Treaty Organization was formed. So I've now touched upon all that. It was done for a reason 30 years ago when the Soviet Union collapsed. It's almost completely defunct in my mind now, or it's been morphed into other stronger organizations like the SCO. So whatever that organization, that Collective Security Treaty was supposed to be, it's been supplanted and overridden by other stronger agencies or collective groups that have more power than Russia did or even does now on its own. And again, most of the states of the former Soviet Union were never interested in joining anything like that anyway. So I don't think the security arrangement, I don't think the loss of Nagorno-Karabakh is going to affect any of the security stuff that Russia had going on, because the SCO is more powerful than Russia was by itself anyway. And all those states are part of the SCO. So back to several different things that now we're looking at. Let's check out the old mailbox here. Let's go to the old Google News map here to see what we can come up with Canada, India spat. What you got, top news? Let's see, who do I want to read here? India's Canada spat clouds ties with West. India, Canada spat. Could this be New Delhi's Israel moment? Ooh, that's a sexy headline. Spat with India leaves Canada's large South Asian community in the middle. Yeah, that's a good one. So, India, Canada spat, Sikh separatist movement could tear Modi's country apart. That's a Bloomberg. That's an extreme headline. I don't think they're going to let me read this article because I think this is a pay site. The separatist movement that's making India nervous. Although this is a good one, though. This gets at the heart of what the hell's going on. So, Sikhs are a religious/ethnic subgrouping within India. There is I say ethnic because I can't positively tell you that it's a distinct ethnic group. I don't believe it is, but it's kind of a culturally and religiously distinct group within India. And there was a geographic region that Sikhs lived in. It's in northwestern India. And there is a movement, and it's been around since India became an independent state during the partition of South Asia, way back in 1947. Look it up or go to the chapter in the textbook. And so for those of you that are inquiring about what the hell are people so pissed off in Canada and India, why are they so pissed off at each other? Well, because Sikhs, much like virtually every other ethnic and religious group on planet Earth, move around. And so there's lots of Sikhs in America, actually, lots in Canada, probably a bunch in Europe, because the British had, of course, ties with India because India used to be a colony. And so there was probably preferential treatment of, or at least a more open door policy for folks of Indian descent from the Indian subcontinent to be able to migrate or otherwise move permanently to Great Britain. So there, and by the way, if you've been to Great Britain in this century, or the last 40 years, you'll notice a fairly significant Indian population and a Sikh population in Great Britain's big cities like London, and really great curry. Part of the best parts of British cuisine now are curries because of the Indian influence in so many great Indian restaurants in London and other major cities of Great Britain, because of the colonial legacy and the movement of those folks back to Great Britain. Back to point, there are Sikhs and folks from different parts of India all over planet Earth now because of migration. And there is a Sikh movement, and one might call them radical, the Indian government does, a radical Sikh movement that is striving for an independent Sikh state. In other words, tearing out a chunk of what's now sovereign state India for their own Sikh state. And that group, or at least the ideology of this group, has been around since 1947, when India and Pakistan separated and became independent sovereign states. And that's the origin of them in the modern era, is 1947, when Great Britain walked away and said, you guys are free to do what you want any old time. And they promptly divided South Asia into India, West Pakistan, and East Pakistan. And then in 1971, East Pakistan tore away from West Pakistan and became the state you call Bangladesh. So that's the brief history of what happened there. And there were different groups within India, namely the Sikhs, and lots of others who said, well, we don't want to be part of India either, or we want to be our own state. This guy who migrated to Canada was a leading one such group of this, let's call it the Free Sikh State Movement. I actually don't know what it's called, but that's close enough. You get the point. So from abroad, the Indian government would call him a rabble-rouser, that he was either collecting money or promoting literature, being a rabble-rouser, sending stuff back home, petitioning, organizing, funding, doing things to move for a movement for a free Sikh state. In other words, to the Indian government, terrorists. All right, so that's the way the Indian government looks at that dude and anybody else who wants a free Sikh state or a free anything state within India. By the way, India ain't alone. No government of any sovereign state on planet Earth wants to lose any of their territory. You may have heard me talk about this during the sovereign state lecture when I said a sovereign state never, ever, never, ever, never, 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 ever, never, never, ever, never, ever willingly gives up territory. You could look all around the world right now, and this is plenty of examples everywhere. The easiest one is China. China doesn't want to give up Taiwan. It fights desperately, and tooth and nail, diplomatically and otherwise. It's going to hold on to Taiwan. China's never going to give up Tibet. Lots of folks say Tibet's a culturally different place. It's ethnically different. It's not ethnically Chinese. It's not religiously Chinese. It's not culturally Chinese. It's not even historically Chinese. But China is not going to give it up. Never, ever, 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 ever. So, and China says anybody that supports the Dalai Lama himself is a terrorist. That's what the Chinese government would say. Not me. I'm okay with the Lama. But in the Chinese eyes, the Dalai Lama is a terrorist. Anyone who supports a free Tibet is a terrorist. Anybody who supports Taiwan's bid for independence is a terrorist. And India ain't no different. And so India looked at this dude and many dudes like him and said, no, we don't like this dude. He's trying to tear away a piece of our country, and we have agents abroad that are going to stop this from happening, or at least stymie them. By the way, I'm sure the United States and the CIA have folks stymieing things and killing people around the world too. There ain't no sense throwing stones in this big, great glass house of espionage. Every government has got agents doing crap all over the place. Nobody's innocent here. However, the reason this is making headlines, and it's a little bizarre, quite frankly, and even took me aback. And I rarely get taken aback. I get taken up front. But even I was taken aback because I'm like, I never would have thought that would have happened, which is it does get a little different when a state sends agents into another sovereign state to kill one of that state's citizens. That's where it starts to get sketch. So, had this guy, and I don't know his name and it doesn't matter for the purposes of this talk, the guy was a Canadian citizen. So he may have originally been born in India, but he migrated and was naturalized and was a Canadian citizen. And it appears that the Indian government had him whacked. And that's behavior that crosses a line of good taste for most of the sovereign states of the world. A country that does it routinely is Russia. Everybody expects Russia to go kill people. Hell, Russia will kill anybody anytime. They can get away with it. They'll kill everybody. Especially former citizens of their state that defect or go away, or anybody that used to work for the government or used to work for spy agencies or used to work for, say, the nuclear technology industry of Russia. If they leave the country, Russia wants them dead. And those people turn up poisoned all over on a quite frequent basis. So you expect it from Russia. You would expect it from North Korea. You might even expect it from Iran. You would expect it from states that have dictators in charge because it's their way or the highway, and they get very tense if their citizens aren't doing what they want, or they get really tense if there's some rabble-rousers somewhere on planet Earth that are making their country look bad, or starting a freedom movement or starting a free Sikh movement. Anything that threatens them, they don't like it, and they'll have people whacked. India, to my knowledge, has never done this, has never crossed that line. That's why it's a little shocking, I guess. And it's also shocking that it's by the way, for full disclosure, I'm sorry, let me step back. The Indian government has 100% denied this. The Indian government has said, no way, Jose. We had nothing to do with this. We didn't send anybody out to whack this guy. This dude died on your territory, end of story. We don't know who killed him. That's your job. However, it really looks like they probably did play a hand in it. And we all think they played a hand in it because the U.S. government told the Canadian government that it had proof that India played a hand in it. And the U.S. loves India right now. So this wasn't an easy conversation for the U.S. to even have with Canada. But the U.S. and Canada, and usually most of the other democracies, free liberal democracies, usually all stand together in, hey, we don't condone this kind of behavior. We're all sovereign states. We all agree. You can kill your own citizens. We've all agreed to that. But you can kill citizens of other states. That's where we draw the line. So that's why this is blown up into such a big deal, is because it's obvious that the U.S. government, I assume it's the CIA, does have tangible and credible evidence that the Indian government did play a hand in killing a citizen of another sovereign state. And again, it's credible and tangible. Trust old Boyer here. I haven't seen the evidence, and I likely won't. But I just use logic in these situations. And it's logical that the U.S. does have very tangible and very credible evidence because the U.S. actually doesn't want to piss off India. The U.S. probably struggled mightily to even release the information it must have accrued because the U.S. is courting India. They just hosted Modi, that's the Prime Minister of India. They just hosted Modi for a full-fledged White House dinner a month or two ago. They just went there. India just hosted the G20 summit, and Biden went there. And U.S. President Biden and many other Western democracies are really hoping, beyond hope, that India joins Team West and all these economic deals are going through. And there was just announced at that G20 meeting that they announced a European through Eastern Europe through Turkey to India economic corridor so India can do more business with the EU. So nobody wants this story right now. Nobody wants this story, which is why logically I say it's likely true. If no one has a vested interest in this coming out, it's probably true. So India likely played a hand in this, but for its part, India is denying it vehemently and is getting very pissed off about it and saying, it ain't our fault. You guys were harboring terrorists. You're harboring anti-Indian terrorists in your state. That's your problem, not ours. And it's like, okay, India, you're digging a deeper grave on this one because you're basically saying, we hate this guy. We didn't do it, but we hate his guts, and it's your fault you're harboring him. I'm like, okay, well, you just admitted you did it. So that's why there's all this angst happening between Canada and India right now, and it has been spiraling to the point that they've pulled diplomats from each other's country, and India's banned all Canadians from foreign visas being issued. So no one who was getting ready to go from Canada to India, and India's a big place, and there's lots of business going back and forth, and lots of students that go back and forth, and lots of tourists go back and forth. So this is really impacting things in a wider way that nobody wants. Nobody wants this to spiral as far as it's going. And it does make India look a little bit bad, to be quite frank, because now it looks like Prime Minister Modi is crossing delicately into the dictator territory of I'll just kill whoever I want, wherever they are. You're like, oh, come on now, India, don't do that. You're like on a roll right now. You're G20 host and you're doing all this business and everybody loves you. Come on, man. Don't go down the dictator path. Oh, by the way, does anybody see another story out of India today? Another good news story. The good news story, I should say good news. It's all relative, but personally, I think it's a good story. India today passed a constitutional amendment that, what did I say, Katie, a quarter? 20%? I think 25% of all representation in the Indian Congress henceforth will be women. What? Yeah, they put it into the constitution of their country. From now on, at least 1/4 of all representatives, that's the equivalent of the Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, a quarter of them will be women. Now, how they're going to make that happen, it's yet to be determined, but that's a huge advancement in the whole issue of equality. That's quite nice. No other state on planet Earth has done that. What a forward-thinking thing to do from a country who's very forward-thinking. Oh, yeah, by the way, they landed a rover on the moon, for God's sakes. They are innovative. They're looking forward. They're going into the future, India is. And then they just went backwards by assassinating somebody on foreign soil. Okay, I berated that enough, but does that answer all of the questions that you all had about that particular story and why it's happened the way that it's happened and why I don't doubt the credibility? 33%. What's that? 33. 1/3 of all representation in the Indian Congress shall henceforth be women. And India's already had a woman prime minister. We haven't even pulled that off here yet. So India, in many ways, is ahead of the game and doing quite well here in the 21st century until they decided to assassinate somebody on foreign soil. And you see from these stories here, India suspends visas for Canadian nationals. India's JSA Steel slows stake buy in Canadian firm. So you're getting now business ramifications from all this. It is not a good look for India. It is a big deal across the board for both countries and the United States, because the United States could be said to blame for helping start the spat with its report that, yeah, we're pretty sure the Indian government had something to do with this. Yikes! It will blow over. It will blow over. But hopefully sooner rather than later for these two growing allies, and especially the alliance that's been strengthening between Team West and India, which has always been an independent power player. By the way, all this crap that I just raged about with India, that's kind of why I want to do a lecture on India this semester. No one has ever voted for it in the past years, nay, decades I've been teaching. India has never won the poll to have a lecture. So if you guys like what I'm talking about now and you see the level of excitement in my eyes about the Indian powerhouse subcontinent, then maybe go vote for that in the survey. James says, I wasn't aware of the EEU, and I'm still getting it wrong. It's the Eurasian Economic Union. That's why I was like, I know it's two E's, Eurasian Economic Union, with Russia at the center. It's really never taken off or done anything. JK say also just sharing that this week I learned that Turkey and Greece kind of hate each other despite both being NATO members, apparently over disagreements in coastal economic zones given to sovereign states. Oh, JK. Greece and Turkey's hatred goes well deeper beyond that. That's a whole nother lecture too. Turkey and Greece have hated each other since the time of the Ottoman Empire, and you can play that forward. And if you really want to find out a little bit more, go just check out Cyprus. Go figure out why Cyprus is divided in two sections if you want to get to the real heat of why those countries do not like each other in today's world. But I'll do a whole topic about that or a flash quiz someday if you all vote for it or want me to talk about it. Oh, Calzone at VT says Train to Busan. Oh, I haven't seen that for a while. Aditi says that's too scary. It's not that it's too scary for you all to watch, from my opinion. It's just I don't know what I'll teach you about Korea with zombies. There's not a whole lot of educational material for me to reap from that one. There's just zombies to reap. Totally not. Viv says, can we suggest films as well? Yes, please do. First time chatter from Zen Baller that says another round. That movie is hilarious. Thank you for that, Zen Baller, and thank you for your first time chat with a hilarious movie. I could pull enough about, is that Danish? Is that Denmark? Is it Copenhagen? Where is another round set? It's Northern Europe. I don't think it's Germany. I think it's either Belgium or Denmark. It's a quite good film. I don't know. There's a lot of educational component to that, but it's a quite good film about drinking and life. Calzone says, if not Train to Busan, then Mary, Kate, and Ashley Passport to Paris. Oh my God, Calzone, thank you, because you just reminded me. Friends, it's 8:59, and the password is Mary, Kate, and Ashley Passport to Paris. If you email me, Mary, Kate, and Ashley Passport to Paris in the next 2 minutes, that's 2 minutes. I'm sorry, it's 9 o'clock now, you have to 9:02. Email me Passport to Paris or Mary, Kate, and Ashley, and you just earned yourself 5 points for tuning into the online office hour. Thank you for that, Calzone. That was a good belly laugh he got out of me. Two Tap says, I have not seen this quiz, the AUKUS Squawkus Team Anglo Rising.
It's up there now.
Yeah, it's up now. Yeah, I'm sorry, Two Tap. It might have been hidden.
I had it hidden.
Okay, yeah. It was accidentally not clicked on. It is now. And by the way, the AUKUS Squawkus Team Anglo Rising is from an office hour I did. This is exact time last year. And that was the reason why I decided to revamp the textbook with a new cover of the East versus West, New Cold War on. The whole AUKUS thing that you're going to watch a video on and then take a quiz on, that was really the catalyst. It was the incentive for me, my mind saying, oh, this is a new Cold War going on. This whole AUKUS group, this is now Team West expanding from a military and security pact scenario to other countries in the Pacific, encircling, or I wouldn't say encircling, but building Team West into a stronger global foundation to counter Team China, Russia. And it is unfolding quite quickly, is it not, my friends? James loves Motorcycle Diaries. Al G says all the films have been amazing. Thank you both. Bobbles Ars is looking forward to Napoleon. Napoleon? What do you mean looking forward to Napoleon? Is he coming back, Bobbles Are? Lenin film was good, says M Dog. Welcome back into the house tonight, Dog. Outsourced liked even better. Yeah. Keena says, how about the animation Persepolis as a film? Done. I have used that in the past. I really like that film. I would do a whole, I should have, the Middle East is actually too big of a topic, quite frankly. I should have divided it up. I think in future references, in future book iterations, I'm going to divide the Middle East. I'll do like a general Middle East, but then I'm going to be like Team Iran needs a whole lecture to itself. Team Arab needs a whole lecture to itself. And so we could do a whole mini sub-regional lecture just on Iran because it's such a complicated country. It's part of the Middle East, but it's so different in so many ways, and Iran finds itself at the root of so many problems in the surrounding vicinity. So I would not even mind a whole sub-regional special lecture just on Iran before this semester's through. And I not only would use the Persepolis film, but we could also use that film with Ben Affleck. What was that one called? Where they smuggled people out. It won a bunch of awards. So I got a couple of ringers for Iran even too, and one of them is animated. Let's see. Okay, Tutef is talking about the AUKUS Squawkus. That's been fixed up now. Lay Camp 14 says Argentina President candidate Javier Milei has been in the news lately. Any thoughts? I have not seen that, Lay Camp. Could you email me a story about presidential candidate Javier? I've not seen anything yet. I usually don't follow domestic politics in other countries for elections because, to me, elections, the run-up to elections and knowing things about people getting elected in other countries, that's for the people of those countries to decipher and figure out and vote for who they want to vote for. Just let me know who won, and then I'll figure out, okay, now I'll figure out who this Javier guy is and what his impact to the region and the globe will be. So I usually don't follow domestic politics in terms of unelected officials until they become elected officials. Okay, the one and only guy says the part of India that the Sikhs live in is called Punjab. Thank you, one and only. Indeed, correct that is. And Punjab has in times past, until very, very modern times, was a kingdom of its own. The kingdom of Punjab, it was actually very hard for the British to even subdue it, to force it to become part of what's now modern India back in the day when the British were colonial masters of the subcontinent. So Punjab has a very rich, long, and proud history of independence, and that's why this Sikh group maybe still keeps that memory alive of Punjabi independence. And again, much like Tibet is to China, India don't want no free Punjab. They want the India that it is. That's their territory, and they don't want to lose any of it. JK says, can the EU afford to continue sanctioning Russia fuel for years to come? I know there's the reserves in Norway, Middle East, but from what I hear, Russian gas was literally keeping the EU lights on. Yeah, that's true, JK, but also consider the speed at which many countries are trying to move towards renewables, particularly solar. Consider that the United States wants to keep the pressure on Russia and wants its allies to not buy Russian gas. So the United States is going to help out as much as it can. The United States, by the way, is a huge oil reserve itself. So the United States actually exports oil. Even though we're one of the number one users of oil, we can still export oil. The U.S. and its allies can also strategically work with other places to get more oil or gas to Europe, if need be, for the longer run. But it looks like mostly they're putting their eggs in a basket of getting off of oil as quickly as you can. Also keep in mind, JK, with global warming, one of the things that's not often talked about because global warming is bad, global warming, bad. Go lay down, global warming. But one of the silver linings, if there is one, is that as Europe gets warmer, you don't need as much heating oil. So Europe already relies much less on automobiles than, say, the United States does, because they got awesome transportation and train system. So they can manage the auto consumption of fossil fuels way easier than we can, we the U.S., and other places too. And the major use for gas, and I would assume all fossil fuels, is for industrial use and heating. So don't discount that as it warms, you need less of that very item that they have sanctions against Russia for. Now, again, there could be a cold snap this coming winter and everything goes, belly up and people are freezing to death. But they've been moving pretty fast. They've already made it a year or two without much of Russia anything. It looks like that could last. They might have to yield a little bit. And by the way, they're still buying Russian oil. They just have sanctions on it, and they limit how much they buy, and they don't pay as much for it. So it's not as if it's stopped completely. And workarounds are constantly in motion and will continue to be for some time to come. So can they do it indefinitely? I don't know, but they're making do with what they can for now, and it looks like it's working. Psy Guy says, what is the extra credit, by the way? 5 points. Calzone says, I've also seen the headlines that under Modi, India slowly turned away from democratic practices. Also correct. And that is rule of law, free speech, cultural diversity. But I don't know much about India and India before Modi. Yes, that's why I'd like to do a whole lecture on it. And that is correct. A lot of folks who aren't in love with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which, by the way, most of his population is. He's a very popular leader. Modi haters are very quick to point out that, freedom of press has been curtailed. There has been rising ethnic and religious tension that may be being stoked by Prime Minister Modi. He is what we call a Hindu nationalist, which is rah-rah, India's number one, and India in his mind is Hindu India. However, there are, a couple 100 million Muslims there. So it's almost surprising there's not been more nasty incidents of violence breaking out between Hindus and Muslims, because it has in times past. Under his leadership in a sub-state of India, there was a really nasty riot that ended up with, 30 or 40 or 100 dead Muslims. So, he is a polarizing figure, but not so much within India itself, because he is wildly popular within India itself. But he certainly has restricted press freedoms. The government is leading with a much heavier hand than it ever has in the past. But he's beloved, and India is on the rise right now, so citizens are willing to look the other way and losing some of their rights as long as their lives are getting better, which is often how it happens on planet Earth. If your country's doing well, then you let the government keep on doing what it's doing, even if it's doing stuff that's going to come back to bite you in the ass in a decade or two. But we're human nature. Human nature is, it's good. Things are good now. Let them roll. Let them roll. Let them roll. Right on up to the time they invade Ukraine, and then it doesn't look as much fun. Of course, I'm referring to Russia there. So, Totally Not Vivian says, there you go, I'm sorry, only here for the Pladcast. Welcome back, only here. Says, murdered activist was named Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Thank you for filling in the info on that one, only here. Totally Not Vivian says, Vivan. Keep saying Vivian, it looks like Vivian. Modi has been known to be somewhat anti-Muslim. I think recently he passed a bill called the Citizenship Amendment Bill. You are correct. Which prohibits Muslim from neighboring countries from gaining citizenship but allows all other religions to do so. Totally not. You are totally on. That is exactly right what you just wrote, which is another reason a lot of folks, even Western Democratic leaders like Joe Biden, they really want India to be on Team West, but they're worried a little bit about Modi's tactics. They like the man personally, but they're like, hey, you're looking a little You're looking a little authoritarian under the gills there, buddy. Come on, you're a democracy. Come on back in. Let's not go down the dictator's path. And to his credit, I would never call Modi a dictator, but he certainly is more heavy-handed than previous prime ministers of the last century. First time chatter from Mel's myself. DT342 is now following. Thank you, Aditi. I saw your little heart pop up on my screen. Everybody else follows so I can see some more hearts, so I feel loved, because that's the only reason I'm here for. I just need love. I need social media love. I'm joking, I don't. First time chatter from myself. Says, I don't have your class, but I love your streams and they bring joy to my heart. Well, my God, well, thank you, myself. That brings joy to my heart as well. Thank you for joining up and first time chatting. Bedburst just gave me a heart. Thank you, Bedburst. That's a good screen name. Bedburst. Wow, I don't know. You can read into that screen name. There might be something sexy going on there. Vikram says 33% of the women. Thank you. I guess I'm really far behind on this stream, even though it's 12 minutes after the hour. Totally Not says, I believe the bill is 1/3. Thank you, Totally Not. Electron India, Totally Not is 4. Mel's Marcel says, I would love to watch Turkey versus Greece videos. Well, it's not a showdown. Turkey, Greece versus fight. I would love to have a whole Street Fighter video game that's just all the countries represented, and then I do lectures about why they're getting ready to fight. Wouldn't that be a great video game with 1980s style graphics? Zen Baller says, I believe so. Copenhagen. There it is. I thought that movie was set in Copenhagen. It's called, what was it called again? Not Bottoms Up. Another Round. What's the actor's name? Mills Mikkelsen? Is it Mills? Mills Mikkelsen? It's a really funny name. I believe he's Danish, but he's the star of it. It's comedy, by the way, with some sad undertones, but it's comedy. Only here for the podcast says, for perspective, current U.S. Congress is only 28% women. Actually, that's higher than even I thought. But we got to get that up to 33% women, and that's mostly... Check my facts on this one, only here for the podcast, but that's got to be overwhelmingly the House, because the Senate is overwhelmingly still male. So I assume that of the 28% of Congress that are female, that probably it's like 26% of them are in the House and only 2% in the Senate. And 0 in the presidential seat in the White House. Although we got the VP. We finally got a woman in there, but that's running mate, so that doesn't even count. We didn't vote in a woman. We voted in a woman with the dude because you voted for the dude. And I'm not being sexist, by the way. I wish we had a woman president, and we're long past due. And yes, I voted for Hillary Clinton, not because of her policies, quite frankly, because she was a woman. I was like, oh, come on, we're due. Can we just get a woman in there, for God's sakes, to break the streak, the 200-year streak of penises in the White House? Can we just shake it up a little bit here, folks? Come on. Sci Guy says, if anyone wants to work on the quizzes, there you go. Sci Guy's always giving the pitch. Only here for the Platcast. Shouts out Argo. Argo will be, if we do a whole little mini regional lecture just on Iran, which I would love to do, by the way. Yeah, we'll show Argo and Persepolis, and I think there's even another good one out of Iran recently, too, that eludes me now, but it'll come to me. Turd Maestro back in the hizzle says, Turd Maestro, is this the real Platt Avenger? It is indeed, Turd Maestro. Welcome back into the fold. Pun intended. Fold, turd, you got it. Toilet paper. On we go. Aditi says, Mads Mikkelsen, not Mix. Thank you. Mads Mikkelsen, I think. I believe you're right, Aditi. Only here for the podcast says, correct, House only, 25 female senators currently. 25 female senators? Really? 25? We only have 100 senators. So if they're 25, that's 25%. I didn't realize we had 20 female senators. That seems really high. But if you already went out and Googled it or got ChatGPT to tell you, I don't doubt those figures. But look at that. I caught up in the chat room. Have I caught up in the chat room? I caught up in the chat room. So, unfortunately, that means we've now once again surpassed the online live office hour. And we are off into the second part of the office hour. But we'll wrap up the old mailbag here. And thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for all the hearts and follows and likes and whatever else you gave me. And mostly, thank you all for the great stimulating conversation and great questions. Hope you learned a little something. So gosh, what did we talk about tonight? We ended up talking a lot about Nagorno-Karabakh, a place which you didn't know about, didn't know where it was, and didn't care about. We talked about Nagorno-Karabakh. We talked about the friction between India and Canada, of all fights to be breaking out. And we talked about lots of other little life lessons along the way. First time chatter from Jello Benesti. Jello Benesti says she'll be imposed an age limit competency test for government officials. Oh, dear Lord. What would a competency test look like for government officials? Woo! That's a can of worms I would love to see open, but thanks for your first time chatter, Jello. I'll have to think that one over. Term limits for sure. I'm a big fan of term limits. It doesn't have to be one and done, by the way. It doesn't even have to be two, but I think about 3. I think we're getting to the point of like, hey, we got a bunch of old white men here who are never leaving. Let's at least, if states want to only vote for old white men, they're at least going to have to do it with newer faced old white men every 3 rounds, let's say. So yeah, I'm a big fan of term limits. I'm a bigger fan of female representation. I'm also a big fan of minority representation. So I'm a big fan of this thing called democracy where everybody's represented. Turnmeister says I've only got 6 hours to go, but I think I am going to wrap it up now. Thank you, Turd and JK and Calzone and everybody else. We can pick this up. Calzone says judges need term limits, too much power grabbing and think they're above the law. Yeah, I am not a fan of the U.S. Supreme Court. I never have been. An unelected group of 9 humans that speak for 350 million of us. That's not only not democratic, it's not representative. So I'm not really sure how the Founding Fathers came up with that as a good idea. But hey, it was a different age. It was only 13 colonies back in that day. Maybe 9 judges for 13 colonies. That's not bad. 9 judges for 350 million citizens? That ain't much. In fact, it ain't nothing, and it's not representative. And they're not elected, so it's not democratic. Anyway, on that note, thank you all for tuning in. Love this as always. Again, hopefully you texted me, or emailed me with the Mary Kate and Ashley drop for some points. And we'll try to crank out another podcast later this week on what I was going to talk about, which was the deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Otherwise, if you have any questions about anything or movie suggestions, please do email me those. I take those seriously. If anybody wants to help me write a movie script for some new movies that we could use, hit me up. That's extra credit as well. And that involves doing some research for the film and finding facts and stuff for me to do the intros for. Otherwise, have a great week. Hit me up anytime for anything, anytime, any question I can answer. I love you all. I hope you're doing well in the course. I hope you already are well on your way to an A. If you're not in my course, I'm glad you just tuned in here for funsies. And I hope you all had a great time. Have a great rest of your Monday night. Have a better week and have the best semester ever. But for now, as always, party on.